early. Oh, hey, we went early. What do you know? God bless America. We can't get this shit straight no matter what.
Let's get this show going, man.
Welcome to the Bleeding Burgundy podcast, a Washington Commanders podcast for fans by fans, with your hosts, Jesse Martin.
The Cowboys are finished. You understand me?
John Taman.
Pull down my trousers and do your job.
Scott Hartley.
Well, that was dreadful.
And occasionally, Keith Gregg.
So many social engagements, so little time.
And now, your host.
Hey, I'm your host. This is John Taman, and you'll find out that I am the worst podcast host on planet Earth, and you'll find out why over the next hour, right? You see Ken nodding along right away. That's right. I do always put in there that we might be joined by Keith Gray, but apparently he's, he hasn't talked to us in a month, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He went off to Thailand and chase after young Asian girls, and we're just going to leave it at that. If he wants to refute that, he can come in and say something about it. We're going to start off as always. I'm going to look over here to my whatever that's over there to my friend Jesse. Now, Jesse, it says right here that people that know you say that they envy people that don't know you. Any comment to that?
I mean, fuck them.
Fuck them. There you go. Scott Hartley down here on the bottom on my right hand side. Scott. Now, Scott Hartley, it says here that you may not have the world's smallest penis, but you are certainly hoping that man does not die.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's like a budgerigard tongue. Anyway, we'll move on.
Hey, how you doing there, man? And down here at the bottom on my right below me down here is our good friend Ken Johannsen, the Burgundy burner himself. And you can be found over at hogshaven.net. Is that correct?
Hogshaven.com.
Hogshaven.com. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, hogshaven.com, where I'll tell you what, you put out some great content, and this is your time of year to shine. So that's why we brought you in here. How are you today?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got through all the snow and ice. It basically grounded this whole area for about 9 days.
Wow, 9 days.
Yeah,
That's like the last 3 winters, 9 days.
Yeah, it was crazy, but everything's melted, gone, and back to normal.
Dude, it's January 26th here in the D.C. area, and it is 74 degrees as a high today.
Yeah, we sent that to you.
Sunday it was a high, or Saturday it was a high of like 10. So, yeah, it's just everything is all screwed up. Anyway, look, we brought you here for a very specific reason, aside from the fact that we do like having you on. You get us. You know our sense of humor. You understand how it goes on here. And you're not afraid to jump in. There's one thing that's fun to me is watching guests sit here quietly trying to find a place where they can get in, and they just can't figure it out. They just jump in. But we do have college all-star games coming up. The Shrine Bowl is coming up on February the 2nd. I believe that's a Thursday. And then the Senior Bowl precedes the Super Bowl. So, look, man, everybody, we've got the number 2 pick. For anybody that doesn't know, this is a Commanders podcast. We've got the number 2 pick, and everybody wants to talk about the number 2 pick, and we might even start to talk a little bit about that second round pick, when we might be able to do with this, about trading and this and that. But the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, and these players are what we're going to be looking for in these games. Yep. So, knowing that that is your forte, go ahead, man. Kick us off. Where are we going first?
In the first round?
Well, no, that's not going first. Sorry, I just threw you out there without anything. I'll tell you what. Let's look at it this way. Let's look at the games. The 2 games coming up.
Who are we looking at? I mean, we know our needs.
Right.
I mean, we need offensive linemen. We
Right.
need defensive ends. We need linebackers, and we desperately need some defensive back help.
Right. And
Ken,
you can see, I'm the world's worst podcast host. I figure we just go down position groups, and you can tell us who you're looking at in those games.
Well, let me give you an idea. Let me give you an idea before we get going on this.
Okay.
Ron Rivera had an interview after he was fired, and he put a tidbit out there that every Commanders fan should want to know about. They asked him what he thinks the team will do in free agency and the draft. And the draft is the one I keyed in on. He said, well, the analytics group and the scouts all were starting to really focus on the middle, what he calls the middle of the field. In other words,
linebackers, the guards, and tackles, and shit.
Yeah. Basically what he said, quarterback, obviously.
Right.
guards and center. Also, a depth player at the defensive tackle position. I guess Phil Mathis is not someone who's inspiring anyone right now. So
I imagine not.
defensive tackle could be a focus late in the draft. Also, that means safety. So right now, are they thinking about they don't want to re-sign Cam Curl, and are they looking at something more, and then the box safety? I found that interesting, but I don't think that's going to be the case because I think they will re-sign Cam Curl. But I think what Rivera said was very telling. I think the middle is going to be the focus. That's not to say in free agency or the draft that they will neglect the tight end position or the
I'd say
tackle.
that's still in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, the tackle position or, cornerback, I think is definitely going to be a focus. But I think overall, they really want to zero in on the middle of the field.
I noticed I didn't hear the word linebacker. Does Ron forget what in the world that thing is? Does he forget?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you could include linebacker in that middle of the field, but
Sure,
I think it's kind of hard to take anything from Ron because, I mean, we don't even know who the defensive coordinator is going to be and what kind of defense that they're going to want to run.
Right.
Get these coaches in here first. I mean, as fans, we know what we need, or we as far as what we're lacking. I mean, and Scott G's right. I mean, we're lacking a lot, but as far as focusing on things, I mean, later in the draft, in my opinion, I think they need to focus on the linebacker group. I think they need to focus on the defensive back group, and they need to focus on the defensive end group. I think tackle we're set. It depends on what they're going to do with John Allen, but I mean, I don't see him going anywhere. You got Payne, and he's definitely not going anywhere. You got him on a big contract. You got John Allen, Phil Mathis, whether Rivera and Jack Del Rio got the most out of him or not, he was still, rated a third. He was a third round, player.
Too. Yeah.
We've got F.A. Obata still. Yes, he's injured, but he's going to be coming back. He may not be on contract, but we got players that we can go ahead and re-sign that are already here.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Jesse. I mean, I've got some prospects here that I've written names down for because I wanted to kind of get inside your head, Ken. And thank you for being on with us. I wanted to talk about the offensive line and the offensive tackles that are in here because in free agency, it's a very dry pool. There's not a great amount of left tackles, right tackles out there in free agency. One for me that I have got, though, in linebackers, which we just spoke about there, that comes up quite a lot is Jeremiah Trotter out of Clemson. I mean, what are your thoughts on his play? Because I don't get to watch a lot of ESPN or a lot of college football because we don't seem to get that over this side of the pond. So, any thoughts that you've got on him? Because he seems to be getting mocked to us a lot.
Well, I think that's a player that some people think he's going to be there in the third round. I don't believe that.
I missed what Scott said. Who did you say?
Trotter.
Jeremiah Trotter.
He's going in the second.
I can't hear the word Trotter this week, this month, without thinking of other people.
I'm with you, Ken. I'm with you. Yeah.
But here's who I would start focusing in on linebackers. First of all, I think quarterback is going number one. We know that.
Yeah.
I think in the second round, we're looking at offensive tackle and cornerback.
Okay.
I think in the third round is where we start to look at linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised if we took two linebackers in that third round. But we do have in the fourth round, we only pick two slots after that third round pick. So I would say more toward the fourth round. So 2 out of those 3 picks, I think, will be linebackers. I would look for Edgar Cooper out of Texas A&M. He's a good player, goes, 6'3", 230 pounds. I'm just now pulling up my list. Okay. I tell you, I think there's a player that may slip in the second round and probably won't be there for Washington. That's Peyton Wilson out of NC State. Now I'm sitting here looking at all his measurables. I mean, he's just a great, solid player.
You say NC State, North Carolina State?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this before you get too deep into the names. How many of these guys are going to be playing in these 2 games that we're going to want to watch?
Let me pull up that list. I got every.
I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to know.
The
like
Senior Bowl is,
nobody. Most of the first round pick projected guys are not going to play in the Senior Bowl or in the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah.
So we're looking at. That's what I kind of look. I'm looking at guys in this game that we will not necessarily all be so up on, that are going to be 3rd, 4th round picks, 5th round.
Okay,
picks.
Peyton Wilson is going to be in the Senior Bowl.
Okay, good.
I have it here. Fortunately, I've brought up all my stuff from my database. So
that's all right. It's a big database.
Yeah, like 439 players right now that I'll start. That I will start paring down by the middle of February. So just so you know.
Yeah. You got to do some housekeeping.
Yeah. So, hello to the dog. But these are the types of players I would be looking for in the 3rd round. And the 4th round, I would look at someone like Tommy Eichenberg out of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
A tad shorter at 6'2", but he's very compact, very powerful at 240. And another player who maybe could slip into the 3rd round is Cedric Gray out of North Carolina, one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he could be the pick at 102, maybe even 100. So these are some of the players I'm looking at. If you look at a linebacker later in the draft, Darius Musasau, that's a difficult one to pronounce. He's out of UCLA. He goes about 6'1", 230, and he has a pretty good solid build. He's going to be playing, I don't have this written down, but I believe he's going to be playing in the East-West Shrine game. I do know that he played in the Hula Bowl, and he met with the Commanders. So if he meets with the Commanders again at the East-West Shrine game, which I think is a distinct possibility, look for him to be a target in the later rounds, but there are no guarantees, of course.
Say his name again.
Derek Musasau.
All right,
Musasala or Sala. I think I've heard of it. I watch a lot of North Carolina games, so I think he has. Scott Hartley.
That's why we have him here.
I'll do one for you in a minute. I'll do one for you in a minute when we get back to our offensive line, because I was struggling with his name. He's a right tackle out of Yale, 6'5", 318. I think it's Kieran. I'm going to butcher this, but Amadeji, I think is how you pronounce his name. Have you heard anything about him? He's apparently a 4th to 5th rounder but he hasn't given up a single pressure in 495 snaps.
Yeah.
Or any sacks at all. He's very good by all accounts.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But the thing that concerns me is the level of competition he went up against.
Okay.
I'm not concerned about him as a player, but I am concerned about the level of competition. You're going up against the likes of Brown University.
Okay.
And you're going up against Cornell, Columbia. These are all great academic schools, but Subataya is a very good guard. He goes, I believe 6'6", 315. I still
Is that the guy at BYU?
Yeah. So
yeah, I think he's going to be projected to be about the 2nd to 3rd round, isn't he, Ken? Thereabouts.
Yeah, I would say 3rd rounder, but if the team likes him and the new staff likes him, he could be a target there in the 3rd round. And now I just brought up, since I can't find it in my database, it's not coming up too well. I just went to PFF site. Mm-hmm. Now, and the analytics rate him as the 68th best overall player in the draft. And I just tagged 68.
That's pretty good.
So for analytics wise, he grades out, in the 3rd round. And we have, I think we picked right around 68. Did we not?
We do, yeah. 68.
Yeah. So Kingsley Sumataya could be there.
Unbelievable player by the looks of it, and he come out he was a 5-star recruit, wasn't he? And he was the guy who. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I did do a little bit of research. Was he out of Oregon, then transferred over to BYU to be closer to home?
Yeah. Oh, but
yeah, I thought.
Oh, you're talking. Okay, I thought you were talking the tackle from Yale. But
the tackle from. Yeah, I thought we were talking about Suyamatra there, the guy.
Yeah,
he's at BYU.
Okay, that's why I couldn't bring him up. But fortunately, I remember the name, and I'm just brought it up.
Scott's just showing off how well he can pronounce names.
No, I'm not. I'm being serious because for me, the biggest timeout. I got you. The biggest thing for me is we have to try and build this offensive line, and we're not going to get it through free agency. And if you can get a good piece at right tackle and something that's acceptable at left tackle, maybe it's Charles Leno, maybe it's somebody else that comes in, you can start to build from here. But we still have to praise patience and plead patience and say it's not going to be a thing that's going to be done over a year. You can't do that unless you absolutely hit. People like Chris Paul's brother, Patrick Paul, he's not going to be around. He's going to probably be the back end of the first round, if not early second.
Could be.
So you're not going to get a chance to get him. Latham, I think, is the other one who's really quite highly thought of. And we're not even going to talk about the Joe Alts of the world and the Fashanus because they are top 10. You know what I mean? You're just not going to get there with them.
Well, you never know what we might do. I mean, granted, we all fans think it's quarterback, but you never know what may happen. They may do a bunch of trading around, trading down, and do all kinds of things. Now, I found it interesting. I'm going to shift gears back since we're talking on the offensive line here. That Ron mentioned center. He drafted a center in the 3rd round last year. All right. So does he not think that this guy can play? Is he like, so far he's told us that his 2nd round pick of 2 years ago can't play and his 3rd round pick of last year can't play. Why can't these guys play? Or is Ron just as usual with his head in the clouds and just living life day by day since he beat cancer, being happy about just going ahead, breathing?
When it came to the draft in the early rounds, they missed.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have missed in the back of the round too. I mean, we don't know this yet. Did
they miss? Here's the thing.
We don't know.
You're right, because what they've done with that defense, what they didn't teach them, I think was you, Ken, that was on here that when right after Del Rio got fired, we were talking, and you said that they just didn't teach. They're not teachers. So maybe Mathis isn't a bust. Maybe he just can't play for those guys because they didn't know what the hell they were doing with him.
Maybe Forbes isn't a bust. I mean, look, we don't know. I mean, maybe, just maybe. I mean, if you look the year before this past year, there were some good things going on in this defense. And for some reason, it just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Say it was the secondary coach leaving but boy, I tell you, that's the big thing.
It's hard to say, but I mean,
it happens.
Is that such a reach? We don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, this team flip-flopped every single year. Good defense, bad defense. Good defense, bad defense. All 4 years, it flip-flopped. So what's the real thing? I mean, I don't think we're going to find out until
this is the
we get Cam Curl. We get some decent coaches in here. And to be all honest with you, I don't know what they're going to do with Cam Curl. I think Cam Curl's going to want too much money.
That's the question, right? Because what you said, they've been up and down, hot and cold. Cam Curl's the epitome of that. We've seen excellent play out of that guy. We've seen play out of that guy that had him being talked about as one of the top safeties in the league. Quan did come on the last few weeks.
I love Quan's play the last few weeks of the season. I think he is a real piece in this defense. I honestly do.
What I'm saying about Cam Curl is a lot of things about this defense because it has been, like you said, it's been a roller coaster. So how much do you commit to Cam Curl when you really truly don't know? Which one is the one that shows up?
These mid-round picks are going to be so damn important. I mean, we're lucky enough to have a lot of them. I mean, we have 6 picks in the first 102. Is that correct? We got 6 of them. We need to hit on 4 starters right here.
Yeah, guaranteed.
So,
You know?
Ken, do we have 4 starters that we might be looking at in these games coming up? I do like the fact that the Shrine Bowl's on a Thursday. I work from home. I will be watching that thing. He's still working on getting his database up. Sorry, man. I'm trying to trip it around for you.
Yeah, there's just, first of all, we don't even know what they're going to do in free agency.
Right.
That's true.
I mean,
Very
we were
true.
just talking about center, and we have Ricky Stromberg.
Yeah.
Is this somebody that they're really going to value, and he works into a starter? I think right now, at least he's a good depth piece at either guard or
He
center.
played all right at guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we go for, in free agency, do we go for someone like Lloyd Cushenberry out of Denver? Now, the thing about Denver, they're going to be cash strapped on the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
So he's somebody, a center that we can get, and he's one of the better ones in the league. Another one is Miami's going to be really cash strapped on the salary cap.
Yeah.
And Robert Hunt, their guard, is a really good one. So these are guys, that's 2 offensive linemen right there.
Yeah, we see this every year, Ken. Just what you're saying. Teams get cash strapped and they have to let go good players.
And
Right.
so Washington has the ability to jump in right away and say, we have a shot at this guy. Now, I don't want them to throw a ton of money, and I don't think, first of all, I don't think this ownership group or Adam Peters is just going to be throwing around money, whoever. Those days are over.
Yeah.
But
Let's hope so. Knocking wood here.
But if they find a player that fits their scheme, fits their play, fits the design, and everything they're looking for, they'll make a play. But I don't think they'll break the bank like Dan Snyder did and, go behind the backs of his coaches and his de facto GM-ness, which he was. But what they're going to do is methodically go through this. I expect 2 players that are going to be somewhat pricey free agents they will sign.
Yeah.
I don't know who they're going to be, but I don't think it'll be any more than 2. I think the rest of
I don't think they can. Yeah.
They got to
Because
sign
we have
everybody
so many contracts that we got. So many roster positions that we have to fill. We can't break the bank for a whole
and that's
bunch
the
of
other
players.
thing. We don't know who they're going to re-sign, but we know they will.
Mhm.
And I will say this. I will go out on a limb already and say they want to re-sign Curtis Samuel.
Good.
I agree with
I
that.
saw your thread about that the other day. I agree entirely. That guy came out as clutch. I was complaining about him when his groin was tweaked for an entire year. And it was just aggravating because it just seemed like more Ron drag, we bought another defective piece. So to the fact that last year he came out, and even though he didn't really have the reception numbers, if you were just looking at statistics, man, he came in with some clutch plays in clutch moments, even if it was only a 4-yard, 6-yard gain. It was what we needed when we needed it, and he was a spark plug. I like him. I'd like him back.
I want to ask Ken this, and we'll go around the room. Deuce, Red Zone in the Lab, thanks for joining us, our good buddy. Brings up a good point. As we talked about earlier, if coaching is as bad as we think, can the new coach take Cam to a whole new level?
He could.
Is it? But he could. But is he? He states that's a gamble because he's going to want a whole bunch of money. Do they want to gamble on that? Pay Cam Curl. I'm sure he's going to want
what's a
15, 16, 17 million a year. To me, that's a little much. Ken, what do you think?
Here's what I think. The other player I was going to mention, in addition to Curtis Samuel, is Cam Curl on defense. I think these are 2 priorities for the new
the regime.
The new regime. Okay, that covers everybody.
Yeah.
So what I think is that Cam Curl has already gone on record saying he really wants to stay here.
We've heard that before.
We've heard that before, but if you listen to him, he doesn't want to go anywhere.
We never had Magic Johnson here before.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's a new day.
And we have a new ownership group that is
Right.
truly professional. we have a staff that's coming together that's truly professional. So he may say, I really like this. I like being here. I don't want to take up, my roots that I've established here and go somewhere else. I want to stay here. I heard him kind of put it that way.
Mhm.
So does that mean what? So let's say he meets the new staff, the new coaches, and he really, really likes it. Does he lower his price a little bit? And does Washington? Well, listen to me. Does Washington come in with still a fair price? And I think they come to an agreement. I think that's going to happen.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, he cannot be sitting here saying, look, back in my rookie year, here's how I played for half a season, and say that's where my money starts, because we've seen otherwise. We've seen it go completely down into the pits. How much of that's coaching, how much of that is the other players around him, I don't know. But
How much
when
is
it's
that
been like that, I think you're right. I think that they probably can get away a lot cheaper than he may think that he was going to get last year.
It's not him. It's not him.
Right.
This is. I know OTC and Spot Track have put the numbers out there, but but let me tell you where they get these numbers.
Agents.
There it is. Agents. Agents tell them.
The Spot Track. They're off a lot. People, you can't rely on Spot Track whatsoever.
But what they do is they talk to agents, and what do agents do? They try to get the most bang.
Yeah,
any of them. That's right.
And so they know how the game is played. Each team knows how the game is played. So to me, whenever I see OTC or Spot Track put these numbers out there, I just go,
because
that's what it means to me.
Right.
Not that they're totally inaccurate, but they're inflated all the time. And I always tell people, when the contract is signed, look for the differences, and then look for all the offset language. Look for the void years and the void years that sometimes are 1 or 2 years. I've even put that out there over the last week or so. I said, let's say Cam Curl signs a new 4-year contract,
right?
And that's what I think it will be. But they will have a 5th year void in there that lowers the cap hit. So will the cap hit be closer to 10 or 11? Possibly. But I don't think it'll be over 12 when you factor all of that in. So
the other thing we've got.
Go ahead.
Sorry, mate. The other thing we've got to factor in here as well is, for the first time in years, we have cash-rich ownership group. So paying big signing bonuses and taking the money away from the cap is the way to go at the moment. So this is why I think we can get 2 players, as you said, and that the 2 players I'd be looking at are edge rushers or middle linebackers. Patrick Queen's out there, who's probably going to go to free agency. I would definitely like the look at him. I think that Josh Allen from the Jags is also a high target, but I think they franchise tag him and he probably doesn't become available. There's people out there like Bryce Huff from the New York Jets, who might not be as costly to the cap, but is also a really good player in this league. And that's where we have to go. It's not bargain basement bin shopping again, where we have Ron Rivera, who's going to Buffalo, to Carolina, to players who he knows. We have to cast this net wide in free agency, and we have to look at exactly these sort of players who we can get that are experienced veterans in this league, a lot of them, but are not too high on the cap. I agree with you with Cam Curl's contract, but there's always ways of finessing this cap. We've got nearly 100 million in cap, or 90 million, whatever it is. It isn't going to go far. We know that when we've got 26 players to re-sign just to get to 53. Bearing in mind, you've got to have a 90-man roster to start training camp with. And then you've got to think to yourself, right, where are we going to go? So I totally agree with your point on having 2 players, I think, that will come out of this in free agency. We're desperate for defensive ends. Look at since Chase Young and Montez Sweat went, we barely had a pressure. So that is where we have to target.
To me, unless they can work some cap magic, to me, if they sign Cam Curl, that's going to be one of those 2 free agents, big money free agents that we're talking about. To me,
not him.
I don't think I don't think Cam's going to. It's me personally, my opinion, because he's going to have other suitors. We know that. I don't think he's going to do a hometown discount. If he does, it ain't going to be much.
The thing about
And
the other,
I don't want to
suitors
pay him no more than $12 million a year. I think that's capped out.
the other suitors also are going to notice this roller coaster, right? You can't just go say, okay, so you were the leader of the 31st ranked defense in all categories. So, yeah, we're going to pay you a fuckload of money. You know, last year at this time when we were talking about Cam,
we paid William Jackson
There's
there's going to be teams that do that.
Are gone.
David Tepper's right down the road.
David Tepper's down the road. He can go do that. But the point that I was making is that fuck, I forgot. Way to go. See, this is what happens, Ken, when you get old. You'll get there someday. Anyway, so here's what I want to ask you now, getting back to these college games. And getting back to what we're talking about the Commanders and the way we're trying to work our cap and how we're going to have to work personnel. So right now we're coachless, okay? Although we have all of our position coaches, all right? I would assume that's only going to last as long until they make a hire, which we all hope is going to be, you know, I hope we all want it's going to be. It's going to be Johnson and his friend. So anyway, the point being, see, I played that and then I throw these things right out of my head. Who is scouting for the Commanders right now? Do we have a scouting service that we pay that's outside of the organization?
Stokes.
Has our new general manager hired his own scouts to hit these games? Or are we using Ron Rivera's? How does this work?
Okay. I assume you haven't talked to Jesse or Scott about this.
No, I have not talked to Jesse or Scott about it.
But I've talked to you about it.
Okay. Well, all I want to know is just for everybody that's out there.
Okay. So I'll share this. I'm not going to name names, but we had two scouts at the Hula Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do know who they are, but I'm not at liberty to share that. But
so are they lame duck scouts, or do we like hire a server?
They normally keep them for a year in these transitions, I believe.
No, they keep them through the draft. After the draft, some of them are gone, if not all of them. Yeah. Then they start hiring a whole new draft team. That's how it always works with every new coaching hire, every new change. Okay. You know, like Washington's going through. So, all that aside, does that mean these two scouts stay with the team? Maybe, maybe not. We're just going to have to wait and see until after the draft. So now next week, I do know that those two same scouts are going to be probably back and forth at the Senior Bowl and East-West Shrine game. Of course, they're going to be at the game itself next Thursday, and they'll also be at the Senior Bowl. Adam Peters is going to be there too.
Yep.
That's a
good.
And would Josh Harris be there? I don't think so. Probably not. I'm not going to rule it out.
Right. Yeah, Peters is a scout from the bones, man. That's where he made his mark, was being a scout. Yeah. So you know he's going to be all up in that.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
No. So there's a chance there could be one or two other scouts. I don't think Eric Stokes will be there. That's just kind of what I'm hearing.
Okay.
But that's not anything official one way or the other. But also we have to recognize that by next week, let's say it is some guy named Jim Johnstone.
Yeah.
Some guy.
It rhymes with Win Watson.
Jim Johnstone. Okay, let's say that hypothetical name. I would say he quickly goes to both of those bowl games, and he will be there. And assuming that he brings on that offensive line coach right away to be the OC. Mm-hmm. He would be there too, and so I think they're going to have this well covered. To be honest,
okay. Well,
now as far as the scouting service, it would not surprise me if they're using one now as a companion to this.
Here's the other question that I have. So these two scouts that we've got that are retained for now, they're going out doing their job as normal. So when they go scout these games, are they looking at everything, or do they have a specific? I would have to think that in a stable organization, you get with your scouts and you say, okay, we'd like to look at these position groups primarily, and then you can look, beyond that after that. And that's kind of
I'm
fun
sure
to
they
do
got
that.
a grading scale.
So who are they getting their marching orders from when it comes to this? Is Peters telling them, okay, we want to look for this, or are they talking to coaches who are going to get fired in a couple of weeks?
Well, it would be naive to think that we aren't talking to some coaches that we know are going to be with this team.
Okay. That's not tampering or anything, is it?
No, but I'm just saying there's probably something off the record there. But
Okay.
Adam Peters is very involved, okay? And I think it would be crazy to assume otherwise. But as far as what these two scouts did at the Hula Bowl, here's a little tidbit for everyone out there. They met with at least 43 players at the Hula Bowl.
Wow. 43. Nice.
43. And what I can tell you, well, you saw me put up some of the names out there on Twitter over about a 2-3 day period. And I had one player listed from the College Gridiron Showcase that they met with that came via source to me. And I'm trying to find out, who else that they met with. The College Gridiron Showcase is a very difficult egg to crack.
Right.
Whereas the Hula Bowl, East West Shrine Game, and Senior Bowl, we basically have a very good idea who they met with. And I know that you probably you're going to ask me, and we can talk about it later. Is how I find out this stuff.
No, I'm not going to ask you.
No,
surely there's a holdover here from the previous regime into the new regime. I mean, both Martys are still in the building, so they must surely be telling Peters, this is where we're weak, this is the current roster. They'll have talked through that by now. And as we've said, Peters started off as a scout, so it's in his DNA. That's where I think he's going to come into full force here. We are hoping that probably this time next week we'll have a new head coach in the building, and it depends on obviously who he brings in, who he can bring in. Because honestly, I think Dan Campbell will get pretty peed off if he's bringing half of the Detroit staff with him. But it looks like that could be the case. But we'll wait and see. One question I do want to ask you, Ken, because you're on here, and I'll ask the other boys as well. Do you think we talked about this a bit, and it's been flown out there as an idea? Do you think, as a young offensive head coach that's coming in potentially, would you put an offensive mind with it? A defensive mind who's a veteran, someone like Fangio's gone now, but somebody of that ilk who would be out there? Because I don't think the deck chairs are being put in around, and at the moment there's only 2 head coaching spots open. I think Dan Quinn goes back to Seattle, and I think we end up with Johnson. And these other people who are on the chopping block aren't going to be there. The likes of the Vrabels, the likes of Belichick's. How would you feel about having an experienced DC coming in to help?
I was going to ask Bill Belichick. What if we brought him as a distance?
Vrabel, Belichick, Martindale, a lot of good defensive coordinators, experienced defensive coordinators, which I think you need to pair up with an inexperienced head coach like Ben Johnson.
Bill Belichick would overshadow.
I don't think Bill would go for it, but
no, he wouldn't. Not at all.
He wouldn't go for it, and even if he did, it would overshadow the other head coach.
I think Vrabel would, though.
Want to. I would rather have, of those 3, I'd rather have Martindale for sure.
Let me tell you about Martindale.
Please.
There's a reason why they got rid of him in Baltimore. He divided the locker room big time. There's a reason they got rid of him up in New York with the Giants.
Really?
He clashed a lot with the head coach and with some players as well. And they weren't too happy. So buyer beware. Maybe it works out if they get him. He's definitely a great defensive coach. But Wink Martindale will never be a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying that he'll probably come with a couple of leashes here and there, and he'll probably behave himself, but there's no guarantees. I would look for Mike Vrabel to do that, but would he get an offer after a year? Maybe not. I would say at least 2 or 3 years he would be on staff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would prefer someone, a defensive coordinator, who is older and would be like Jim Johnson up in Philadelphia, who was Andy Reid's DC until literally he died.
Yeah.
Or a Dick LeBeau at Pittsburgh, who coached all the way until he was, 82?
And he looked like he was about 40.
LeBeau looked good on that sideline at the end.
He did. And he still was a great coach.
Yeah, he was.
Richie Pettibone was a DC for a long time. He was never, when he became head coach for the Redskins for a year, I was like, yeah, this is not good.
Somebody asked earlier today on social media, what's the worst season you ever sat through with a head coach of your team? And that might have been it, because we were so high and then we hit the ground so hard.
I don't know.
with Pettibone walking around with him,
Jim Zorn year was pretty fucking bad.
It was pretty well. He had 2 years. And by the way, you did bring up Brian Dable, and it is the end of the season, and we did vote for him to be the player coach most likely to be mistaken for a butt plug by airport personnel. And I bet you, I think we've got the statistics that this happened 3 times this year.
Wow.
Oh.
Jeez, John.
I don't know why y'all say geez, John. Y'all egg me on to do it.
I know.
Mike Vrabel. I'll touch on Mike Vrabel for a second. I'm actually really surprised that he didn't get more opportunity, because I do think he's a good coach.
So do I.
He's not a head coach. He's not a head coach.
I thought the Titans were stupid for getting rid of him. For Brian Callahan, I mean, what the hell are they thinking?
They're changing for change's sake, I think.
Scott G's talking about him going into TV. He very well could go into TV, but he might not want to do TV. He might want to still coach. Dude, and I could see him coming in for a year, maybe 2 tops, but then he's going to get another. He's going to get another job at some point in time.
Amy Adams Strunk, the now owner of the Tennessee Titans, I call her Amy Adams Drunk.
Yeah,
we're getting rid of Mike Vrabel.
Yeah,
he's not the best head coach in the world, so I sort of understand the move.
They were always competitive.
They were always competitive.
He got him this close to a Super Bowl.
But I tell you what, the reason I like Mike Vrabel is that this ownership group is amazing, absolutely amazing. They have hit every step along the way and have not stumbled at all.
So far.
Yep.
Yeah. There will be a miss.
2 DNs. I think that's a little trip.
But for so far, I mean, it's been incredible. And maybe it's not incredible to fans of other teams, but look at what we've been through. So,
yeah.
So, let's just take it all a little bit.
It truly is a new day in Washington football.
Doubt.
Definitely.
So I think with this new ownership group, with Josh Harris and with Magic Johnson being there and so forth, they can sit down with Mike Vrabel and say, well, we're going to really compensate you well.
Mm-hmm.
We want you here for the long haul. We want you to become the Jim Johnson that coach
that Andy Reid had.
We want you to become the Richie Pettibone coach that Joe Gibbs had, and so on and so on. And here's what we're going to give you. We're going to give you assistant head coach defense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that keeps you as a head coach, so to speak.
Right.
And you're going to have autonomy over that defense for as long as you want. Unless, of course, they really fail.
Unless he fails, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's what I think they should do. And I think this ownership group can make it happen.
Now, let me throw a wrench. Go ahead.
As if he wants to take a step back.
That's true. That's true. And there's been precedents for it, and that's what we've got to look at. McVay with Wade Phillips, Fangio's over there in Miami as well. I think the LaFleur had someone who was older as well. There's a lot who do that. And
shut up, Scott G. I'm not talking to you.
Oh, yeah, LaFleur had Joe Barry.
DC. I know, but even so, the one thing I did want to bring up there is
Joe Barry will drag you around and say, here, let me show you the best dumpsters to find fresh food in. Come here.
The one thing I did want to bring up was Yam's point here, saying the worst part about us being bad for so long is we fight with each other, members of the media that cover the team. I just want to be excited to see our team each week, even through the losses. Yeah. I agree with him. For the first time in my entire fandom, things are looking good. Things are looking up, as Ken said. This is the time where, as you said, Jesse, it's a new dawn and a new day in Washington, and we can hopefully get this team on the road and we can win football games, which is what we all want to see.
That's all we want to see. Now, Ken, you're a fellow oldster like myself, and I was been trying to think of when was the last time that the Washington team, I don't care, even if you go back to Boston, saw this kind of genesis point, which new ownership, new coach, new quarterback, presumably, everything is going to change at this point. Even at the times when we pulled in like Joe Gibbs, they said, here's Joe Theismann, right? Everything now is new. And that's what I think makes this job so enticing to a lot of these coaches, is that they can build this team in their own image. And really, if it works, they set themselves good. So how long has it been since we've seen something like this?
53 years, 54 years.
Easily.
And I'll tell you what.
You're thinking George Allen?
Well, no. Hear me out.
Okay.
In the mid-late 60s, we had as our coaches Bill McPeak and Otto Graham. Now, Bill McPeak was just...
He was awful.
And Otto Graham was a great player.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But as a head coach, no. So that's what you had, even though you had Sonny Jurgensen on the team, even though you had Chris Hamburger, even though you had Charlie Taylor.
Bobby Mitchell.
But what happened in 1969, that's actually 55 years, changed everything. They brought aboard Vince Lombardi. That was the biggest change that propelled Washington into a winning franchise from 1969 to the early 90s. And that attitude permeated throughout the entire building. It carried over into the 70s. I'm convinced that if Vince Lombardi had not gotten cancer and lived, he would have been there for 10 to 12 years. Yeah. They would have won, I predict, 2 or 3 Super Bowls during that time. And they would have definitely been in the conversation of a better team in the 70s. But that didn't happen. But he started them on a path of how to win, how to build a front office, how to build a coaching staff, how to build a team. Now, George Allen strayed by trading a lot of draft picks for former players that played for him and some other good players. It worked through most of the 70s.
Right.
But it crashed toward the end when Jack Pardee became the coach, and that didn't work. But they brought Gibbs. They still had that attitude throughout the building. Mm-hmm. And then we saw what happened with Gibbs, and it went all the way to the early 90s. So to me, the turning point back in the day was 1969.
I'll tell you what, brush with greatness story. 1969, I was 6 years old. My grandfather was a doctor at the hospital where Vince Lombardi died. I went with him on rounds one day, and there was all these big dudes hanging around. And I asked him, who were those guys? And he said, those are the Redskins. And I was like, okay. And we had to move along, but in the room over there was Vince Lombardi. I didn't realize, being a kid, but
wow.
So, but even then, when Lombardi came in, you're right. It generated a winning attitude, but he went with a quarterback that he was handed.
Yeah.
The last quarterback that I think that any of our coaches picked for himself, somebody brought up John Beck for Mike Shanahan, but he wasn't a rookie, I don't think. But North Turner with Heath Schuler. Other than that, everybody that I can remember in my lifetime was brought along to the next coach and handed over.
Well, Jason Campbell, wasn't that a Gibbs?
That was a Joe Gibbs pick. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Joe Gibbs picked him, but was that his first season? Was that?
I think
was 2005?
So. I think so.
Because he brought in Mark Brunell. That was the first movie he made, I think. He brought in Mark Brunell.
Okay, that was his. Because Mark Brunell was
06. 05 he drafted Sean. 06 he got him, and he got Carlos Rogers in the first round.
Yeah, but he sat for a year. Campbell sat for a year behind Brunell, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
I used to have a video of Mark Brunell wiping a booger on Mark Sanchez on the sidelines, and I probably could still find it somewhere if you really wanted to see it. But he does. It's on TV. He's like,
Well, like this whole
Mark Sanchez.
This whole this is a whole rebuild. I mean, basically, this. I mean, you're building the coaching staff, you're building the front office up, and then because of so many players not on contract, no quarterback, you're building the whole entire. This is and y'all know I hate this word, but this is like it's a new team. It's a new, or what? It's a, what's that stupid fucking word? A new franchise.
It's an expansion team.
Expansion.
Expansion,
It's
yeah.
kind of like that, but with the roots of the Washington Redskins is what this is. You know, I mean, you're building. We got a lot of money. Obviously, we can't get a whole bunch of star power, but we have enough money to get solid players at positions of need, and then we got a lot of draft picks. This is, in my feeling, I'm not saying just because a fan, but I see some, media saying, it was the sixth best destination out of all the destinations that needed GMs this was the number one by far, because like if coaches have to have a sense of my shit don't stink, so to speak,
they have to be, you have to be an alpha.
Yeah. And if you're really a man's man or that much of an alpha, you want to take this job. If you're a Scott Hartley, a nipple twisting fool, a nipple twisting fart eater, dude, this is the job that you want, because you can put your stamp on pretty much every
facet
of this
That's what
team.
I say. They can build in their own image.
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying for a couple of weeks here. Well, a month even. We just have to be patient here. Remember the golden rule of this podcast. Fans are stupid. I'm stupid. I'm a couch GM like everybody else is. I look at the free agency tab and go, oh, who would I like in the lottery of love? Yeah, I'll pick this guy. I'll pick this guy. I'll pick this guy. You can't do that. It's impossible to build.
There's extenuating circumstances. You're right. It's not a fantasy league.
No,
right. Like I tell you what, I wanted Martindale based on performance of his defenses. I had no idea whether some of the stuff that Ken said, and now I have no part of him. No part of him.
I mean, so a lot of people blame Rivera.
Ken is smart.
Rivera deserves a lot of blame of the things that went on the past 4 years, but some things that he had no control of. I mean, he doesn't have control of if players doesn't want to come here. He didn't have control of all the stuff that Snyder did. That's all gone now. That is over with, and people are actually going to want to come here. I mean, Adam Peters, the number one target for GM, this was his only destination.
He couldn't wait to get here.
Yeah,
I know. So, and that's surprising. I mean, you like you said, Ken, they've knocked it out the park so far with these hires. You know what I mean? Look at Adam Peters. Adam Peters is the number one target. He was the number one GM that everybody wanted in, and we got him. We're now likely to get the number one candidate for a head coaching spot.
What are you going to say if they hire Dan Quinn?
Here's what I'm going to say.
So annoyed. I'll be so annoyed.
Here's something
I'll probably go into mourning.
I'm going to piss. Oh, never mind. Go ahead. I'm not going to piss on.
Go on. No, go on.
No, go ahead.
Now, what I'll say about Ben Johnson is that I've heard that it's been pretty much a done deal for many weeks.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
But
he let slip at his press conference
3 times.
Yeah.
That's got to count for something.
Yeah, and Bob Myers and
what are you saying? 3 times Dan Quinn.
Who was the other guy they brought aboard as
Spielman.
Spielman, yeah. Rick Spielman. That is something that apparently was pretty much in the works for about 3 months.
Yeah, that Peters thing. Now, but I'm saying
Dan Quinn
has been interviewed 3 times.
It's twice.
Once on Zoom and twice in person.
That. No. It's only
the third time was when he came back in and asked for directions to the airport. That doesn't.
No. It's this. I've seen that clarified as he's only been in once for a face-to-face. The second
and he flew
time
to Seattle,
was rescheduled apparently.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It was Ben Standing who said that today.
Okay, so he didn't have the interview today. Is that when it's been rescheduled?
No. It's Monday. It's Monday.
Well, then, okay, it's going to be 3 times. They're going to interview him a third time.
Next week would be
because
the third,
Mike McDonald is still going to be out there, and I know they're high on.
I know
him.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, are they going to? Let's say the 49ers win on Sunday, but the Ravens also win. Are they going to go ahead and hire Johnson right away, or are they going to maybe hedge a little bit and see what
I
they
think
have.
they'll hire him right away.
I think they interview in the 2-week interim
if they
between
can,
the championship.
I think the Dan Quinn thing is if they can't get a deal worked out with Johnson, like say if he's just asking for an exorbitant price, I think Dan Quinn is the backup plan.
Send Johnson a prostitute.
I mean, the other Johnson.
That's right.
The other thing with Johnson,
I'll make a call and make it happen.
There you go.
Yeah, good man.
Up on the remote.
The thing with Johnson is it is almost a 95% lock. The only two teams that I thought could have any interest in him would be Atlanta and Carolina. They're both full. They've got a head coach in, and when we look at it in
Seattle's
his press conference
too.
His press conference gave it away when he said, "Look, I'm looking forward to working with them."
Oh, I think this is his number one destination too.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
I do, but negotiations could break down. I'm just saying. I wouldn't call it 100% chance. I would say 90% chance that it's going to happen. But you have that 10% chance, and you got to have a certified backup plan. And I think Dan Quinn is that backup plan. I'm not sure if they're in on McDonald. Even though I want them to be, because I'd be fine with McDonald as well.
Problem with McDonald is what do you do on the offensive side of the ball?
If we do pull a defensive coach, let's say McDonald is hired. Who's the offensive coordinator?
That's what I was going to say.
That's not my decision. I don't know.
Everything's our decision. Haven't you been paying attention to this show?
Eric Bieniemy.
Oh God!
Stop it!
I was going to say the same thing.
Stop it! Yeah, people think that Eric Bieniemy was somehow victimized by the Commanders. Look, man, he had a big hand in this. And by the way, we're all going to get Johnson, and we know it. So we're going to do this.
When we do it,
you caught a prize.
We're going to bring him in.
Johnson. Party nights, summer whites. You, your friends, and your Johnson. Rooster tails, water trails. You, your kids, and your Johnson. Saturday nights, distant lights. You, your girl, and your Johnson.
You and your Johnson, a way of life for over 50 years.
That's right. The Commanders and their Johnson, we're bringing him in.
So I'll do a true or false, John. I'm going to take this part on. I'm going to do a true or false. Here you go. This is a question that we've been talking about. We'll go around there.
Sorry.
Go ahead. True or false? We get Ben Johnson in, and he runs it back with Sam Howell. True or false?
False.
I'm gonna say false.
False.
I say false. Yeah.
And do you think do you think that's because they just looking at two and going, we have to pick a quarterback here? There's absolutely no.
But even if they do, why can't they still play Sam and let this kid sit for a half a season? There's no reason why they can't. I hesitate to say false. Most likely false. How about that? But the potential exists. He'll be on the team.
Yeah, he will.
I don't think that he'll be, the chosen starter as, you are our guy going forward forever. But, I think they're picking a quarterback. But there's a chance that they might say, okay, we're going to start you for the first 5 or 6 games.
This is the thing, you see. We don't know. They might come in and say, hey, we really like Bo Nix. We really like Penix. We right. And then you get them in the second round rather than the first round. And you get a tackle or you trade back and get one of these elite tackles like a Joe Alt or a Fashanu. We've got no idea.
How many of those quarterbacks will be playing in these games, Ken?
Okay.
Nope. So sorry, I thought you had it off the top of your head.
No.
I know the Senior Bowl, like the only main one is Penix, right?
Penix is playing.
Okay, in the Shrine Bowl there is 6, but it's really 5 because Jordan Travis is injured. He's there just to be interviewed and all and all, which I think is a smart move. Now in the Senior Bowl, there's 7 quarterbacks.
Okay.
And is Bo Nix playing in any of these games?
Senior Bowl.
Penix is playing in the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
Cool.
What about Rattler?
He's Senior Bowl.
Okay. That's not that I want anything to do with him. I just think he has a cool name.
Yeah, and the only other quarterback that's kind of been talked about anywhere is JJ McCarthy. He's the only other one, isn't he?
I can see him moving up in the draft after the combine.
I can too. And Jaden Daniels will be the question that on everyone's lips. Is he going to go at 2 or are we going to stick to Drake May? But if you look at Ben Johnson's offense, he's got
that's a Drake May offense right there, 100%.
Yeah, of course it is, 100%.
What I'll say to this is that 3 weeks ago, everybody was on Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Like a fly on you know what.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they wanted. A week later, it was Drake May. It's what everyone wanted. Well, right now, this week, Jaden Daniels is the guy that, this is going to go all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm
it's
telling
lying season. We got to remember that.
It's stupid. Fans follow everything just like they're on the tide. They're like a jellyfish on the tide.
So what I'm saying is let the staff get in place and let them start cooking. Let them start watching. Let them start evaluating. They're going to get the quarterback that they want, that they think best fits what they're going to do. And guess what? We're all going to be happy.
Yeah, I think so. At least we're going to have.
I want to put something out there.
Go on.
This comp comparing these quarterbacks to other people, especially Drake May to Sam Howell is 2.0. It's just a lazy comp because
that's all anybody ever does, though.
It's ridiculous because he's not Sam Howell. For one, he's like 5 inches taller than Sam Howell. So we should just stop doing that. I think it's just kind of
dude. People comp quarterbacks because of the color of their skin. That's ridiculous. He reminds me of that guy. Well, really, what makes you think of that?
It's ridiculous.
It is.
Just because they come from the same school. That doesn't mean anything whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean they worked out together last off season, and they're apparently really good mates, which might make it quite difficult in that quarterback room, or it might work the other way.
I think Sam knows where he stands with his team right now. I mean, he's a smart kid.
He's always been so level-headed. I don't think that he could possibly be over. He's watching film. He sees himself.
Yeah,
he knows. And one of the things that I always did like about him is the fact that he will work on his deficiencies. Last offseason, he worked a lot on his footwork, and even though it failed him in the end, he put the work in. So that's what I'm sure what he's going to be doing this year. And you know what? Not everybody's going to be an elite quarterback, and you can still have a big, long career not being an elite quarterback. And I think he can.
When it comes to quarterbacks, you have to dive deeper than the win-loss record. You have to dive deeper than the stats because there's so many extenuating circumstances. I mean, you take a Drake May, which the talent around him isn't nearly the talent someone like Jaden Daniels has. But if you look at Caleb Williams, he didn't have
much talent
either. But that's why he's rated. He's the number one quarterback in this draft. I think that is a consensus of pretty much everybody. Now, all three of these quarterbacks, none of them can freaking work out because that's how fickle the quarterback position is.
How hard it is,
It could wind up being the Hall of Famer. We don't know. And to be all, if the scouts and the NFL people are being honest with themselves too, they don't know either because it's circumstances. You're not going to know how they're going to develop. It's such a different game from the college level.
It's the biggest jump in all of sports.
And that it's really a crapshoot. I'm not a Daniels fan, but if that's who we end up with, that's who we end up with.
I'll be a fan. Right.
In my opinion, he just looks like he's going to get broken by week 5, just with the carelessness of how he treats his small body.
When you talk about quarterbacks, just look at this weekend. You got the number 1 overall pick in Detroit going against the Mr. Irrelevant in San Francisco.
Yeah, right? I mean, I just want an answer now, John, for the 25-year carousel that we've had where we just have to have an answer at quarterback and put this to bed. I'm sick and tired of every offseason talking about quarterback time and time again. It's just frustrating.
You never know. The answer
I hope we're sat here in 2 years, Jesse, going, I remember when we talked about that, Ken, and Drake May's worked out. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, they might think the answer is Kirk fucking Cousins. We don't know. We don't know what they're going to do.
We don't know what they're going to do. All right, so they might trade down, take a free agent stopgap like that and pick Joe Alt, which I'd be very happy with. Maybe not trade down. However, we're talking about quarterbacks, and I brought this up earlier, so I'm going to share my screen just for a second, and I'm going to show you all this because we're going to take a little field trip. Let's see. Ready? Here we go. We're going to go and take a field trip. We're going to watch Mark Sanchez wipe a booger on Mark Brunell. Here we go. He's going to do it here in a minute. We're watching this game. Here you go. Oh, man. That's just awful. Let's see it again one more time for those in the back that missed it. Oh, that's just terrible. That is not how you treat anybody. Am I still sharing or not? Did I get rid of it?
No,
Okay.
you're good. You're good.
All right.
Let me bring up something about the top quarterbacks.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's talk Caleb Williams. We know Drake May is in that conversation. We know Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. I think we can agree that's the top 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let me mention analytics. All of them are right about the same from this past season as far as analytics. Think about that, because this
we're high on analytics now.
Yeah, exactly. So who do
So
they
that
like?
opens up-
I really think that there's a distinct possibility that Washington does trade down. I'm not saying it will happen, but I do think ultimately they take a quarterback early. But if they do trade down, it could be twice. I could see them trading down to the 3rd pick. I could then see them trading down maybe the 4th, but probably 6th or 7th. They get the tackle they want. Then all of a sudden they have like maybe 4 second-round picks.
Exactly.
They can trade back up into the 1st round.
Get a J.J. McCarthy or something like that.
Bingo. That's who I think.
I'm really interested to see J.J. in the combine in this program.
And I would say, keep a watch on him at the Senior Bowl. But I really think that we can't rule out that Washington, if they have that draft capital in the 2nd round, would move up to around the 20th, 21st spot. That's just roughly thinking what it could be, and get J.J. McCarthy.
If they could do that and pull Joe Alt, John would be in the bathroom for at least 5 minutes, and he'd come out with endorphins flowing. That's for sure.
I mean, you need that 5th. You need that 5th-year option, though. That's the point. You need
that's why you trade back up.
Right.
That's the key.
So I think that
I mean, Baltimore did it with Lamar. That was exactly the right move to do. That is exactly the right move.
You would have a franchise left tackle, and then you would have your quarterback of the future. And the reason I like J.J. McCarthy is not only because of his analytics, but because he just took a team to a 15-0 record, national championship. He played solidly all season long, and if there's anyone that can coach him up to an NFL level to be very productive, it's Ben Johnson. Because Jared Goff, look at what he did before Ben Johnson came along. Decent.
He was okay. I mean, he did.
He was okay.
He was good,
but he wasn't.
He wasn't the number 1 overall pick type guy you want, right?
But the relationship with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff has been very unique, because Ben Johnson told him from day one, I'm not going to sit here and put a play sheet in front of you and you learn it and you're going to do it. I want you to tell me what you like, and I want you to tell me what you don't like here, and we'll adjust it accordingly. And he says, we're going to start this little exercise with tell me what you liked with Sean McVay with the Rams and what you didn't like. So let's go from there and see what we can put together this year. And guess what? They're in the NFC Championship game. The Detroit Lions.
Right. I know. The Detroit Lions. Isn't that
and that's the thing. That you're right, Ken. That's the thing. Is we do not need an amazing, unbelievable quarterback straight out the box. We're not going to get a CJ Stroud as he has been this year. If you can get top 15 quarterback play, there is enough weapons on this offense to get.
Even if you don't get that next year, I mean, we're talking about.
That's what I mean.
We're talking about a rookie, most likely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's getting top 15 used to be unheard of. Now it's not so unheard of. These guys come much more prepared for the league. But I tend to agree with Ken. If we go with Johnson, what he is able to do in order to be able to relate to the quarterback and find out how he's able to run what runs best, he'll work to his talent rather than what we have seen over the last
And what has been the biggest complaint with coaches over the last 20 years at least,
adjustment.
Is they do not adjust to the talents of the players they have. They try to
correct.
fit their system to those players, And now you're going to bring aboard a coach that preaches, I have a system. You need to work with it, but we're going to adjust to you as well.
And just to dive a little bit back into J.J. McCarthy, the offense that he ran in Michigan wasn't a pro style offense. It was more of it was geared towards running. So I
running
think
back damn played well. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Corum is a great running back, but you're starting to hear his name a lot, and I want to dive a little bit more into him. But I don't think his whole skill set. People are saying that his whole skill set wasn't on display at Michigan because of the style of offense that they ran. So who knows? Ben Johnson may be like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna take JJ at 2. We just don't know, and we can't hate on that.
It'll be a surprise.
That's why I'm so interested in his and Bo Nix as well too. But his pro day and the combine is really going to tell a lot. I expect 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10.
Yam says that Harbaugh says, Harbaugh, by the way, congratulations to the San Diego Chargers, who I'm still going to call the San Diego Chargers because I think they still think they're in San Diego. They don't have a fan base in LA. That JJ was the best quarterback he worked with in college, and take that for a grain of salt. But still, there is he won a championship with him, undefeated with him.
I think Harbaugh said he was the best quarterback Michigan has ever had. I think it was the shot,
including himself. Brady. My God, that's coming down.
I think it was a shot at Tom Brady too. Well, John Brady wasn't a great quarterback. I mean, he wasn't. He was okay, but he wasn't a killer like he was in the pros.
Right. Well, all right, we are well past an hour. Scott's going to be getting mad at me here. He's going to be sending me text messages. John, you got to get us out of here. So, Ken, I sincerely appreciate you coming on board, man. I've loved having you on this year. We're going to keep having you on this as we go through the offseason, getting closer and talking about these players because, most of us, lots of us, we know each other through social media and other outlets on the internet. And then there's a very narrow focus a lot of times in the information that you get in those outlets. So, having somebody like you with the breadth of knowledge that you bring to the podcast to be able to tell us about these players that are 4th, 5th, 6th round, 7th round prospects, man, that's invaluable information for a fan, and I sincerely appreciate it. So everybody out there, go to hogshaven.net, keep up on, or .com, excuse me. Go ahead, Ken. I see the finger.
I'm going to throw a player out there to look for in the 7th round.
That's all right.
Nice.
Here we go.
David White Jr., wide receiver, Appalachian State. 7th rounder. Small school. He's dynamic. He can be a punt and kick returner. And I know we have Casimir Island on the roster still.
If he can learn how to catch, I think
so far
he'd be good.
Don't even know how to ride a bike, I don't think.
David White Jr.
All right.
Appalachian State. Keep an eye on him.
Well, there you go. So everybody, hogshaven.com, read up on Ken.
We're going to try to get Ken on. We're trying to get him on once a month before the draft. If Ken's willing to do that, give us.
I've already put something out there, so there you go.
Yeah, man. This has been great. I've learned a lot tonight. We've had a good discussion about things. It's not the usual claptrap, is it? We get some people on here. We have to act like we've got some class. All right, everybody. That'll be it for today. We'll be back on. We haven't made picks for the NFC Championship games.
No,
tomorrow I'm going to be busy until later in the day.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. We can just make some overall.
Okay.
Picks. Go ahead. Let's hear it. Ken, go ahead. You're our guest. You start first. Who you got in the NFC Championship?
Well, let me pull up the lines.
Oh, are we going to do that?
Oh yeah, we can do. I mean, Scott doesn't have the Big and Boss book with him.
Okay. In an upset, I'm going with the Detroit Lions by 4 points. 31-27. Now, the AFC Championship game, I think, is going to be a defensive battle, and I think that defense for Baltimore will really frustrate Andy Reid and that team. So I'm thinking. I'm going to go ahead and say Baltimore wins 21-10.
Wow. That's a spanking. That is when you look at Mike McDonald and say, my goodness, my friend, you have taken every offense that they've thrown at you, including all of these coordinators we're talking about as to head coach potential, and you've shut them down. That's something to say. I tell you what, go ahead, Jesse. We're not going to make our bets yet. If y'all want to do it tomorrow, I got places to be, but we can do that Sunday morning if you want.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll make
One more thing.
All right, go ahead, Ken.
John, you said something earlier about the Chosen One. My favorite cartoons were about the Chosen One, Kellen Winslow Jr.
The soldier.
And I laughed so hard for a long time, and I still go back and look at them to this day.
Yeah.
Every so often. And there's one person out there in the sports media world that brought attention to it. You know who it is.
Was it Mary Kay Cabot to him?
Well, no.
I know. I got called names on ESPN by Len Elmore.
Well, yeah. But the one who brought attention to it was Mike Florio.
Right. That's right. Mike Florio actually asked me if I wanted to join PFF when they first started with the cartoons, and I was just overwhelmed with shit that I had to do, and I couldn't leave the area, and I couldn't do it. So I couldn't. But he asked me at the very beginning, and he'll probably deny it now, but yeah, he wanted Bang Cartoons to be a
thumbs up for that.
Yeah, man. The Kellen Winslow cartoons, for anybody that doesn't know, go to YouTube and look on Bang Cartoons, and you'll find the Kellen Winslow saga. That second Kellen Winslow, the first Kellen Winslow cartoon was one of the first ones that got me way out there, you know, because he was decidedly going to be difficult to sign. His agents were some belligerent sons of bitches, and they had decided that he was 6th overall pick, but they were going to treat it like he was the number 1 overall pick. So he's since raped a woman, and he's now in prison. Yeah. So good for Kellen.
All right, so I'm going to say that the Detroit Lions shocked the world and head to the Super Bowl. My Detroit Lions. Well, until
your Detroit Lions.
Y'all know I've been on Detroit for the past 2 seasons now.
Yeah, I know.
I love this team. Their crazy ass coach, man. When he was first hired, everybody was making fun of him about biting kneecaps. But you know what? I mean, he's great, man. He is great, and I'm happy for the city of Detroit. They need this. They deserve this. It's good for them, and they probably won't win, but I'm just going to say that they're going to win.
Scotty, what do you got? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And listen, the Baltimore Ravens, to me, they are rivals like the Dallas Cowboys are, except for the AFC. I hate the Ravens. I don't know why so many of our fan base are so enamored with this with the Ravens. We're supposed to be the big brother in the Beltway. We've been here longer, and it's flipped, and I can't stand that. Fuck the Ravens. The Ravens are going to lose.
That's right. And Jimmy Seafood can fuck off. Scotty, what do you got?
Yeah, my heart says Ravens, and because I don't like the Chiefs. It's not about the Chiefs. It's just I'm sick of seeing Patrick Mahomes. And save us from a Taylor Swift Super Bowl. No, I like Taylor Swift. I'm going away from that. But
I just love her. She's amazing.
I do. But in all seriousness, I think it's going to be a 49ers and Ravens Super Bowl because that's what's on the logo. That's what's on the logo. Look at the logo. It doesn't lie. They're the colors. That's what's going to happen. Look at it for the last 3 years. And funnily enough, next year is a burgundy and gold one.
Go ahead.
One more tidbit.
Go ahead. A tidbit.
A dark horse for defensive coordinator. Chris Harris, formerly of the Commanders and the Titans.
He deserves a shot.
Yeah.
I'd be good with that. All right, so my picks, I want to see Detroit win, and I think that they can. I think they can. I think that San Francisco has allowed themselves in the last, I'd say, 8 weeks of the season to be kind of pushed around a little bit. And I think that Detroit, if you let them push them around, if you let Detroit push you around, they're just going to roll right over you. Because once you give that freaking meathead coach of theirs an inch, if you give him the slightest opening, he's coming in, right? And I like that. So yeah, I'm picking the Lions. I think they're going to win this game. And the Ravens Chiefs, boy, I'll tell you, the Chiefs in the last couple of games really showed me something because I had been saying they don't look like the same Chiefs. They don't have the speed of the Chiefs. But you know what? Last week they went up there.
Pat Mahomes, best quarterback that we've seen in
not just that. They went up there last week against the Buffalo Bills in that cold, and they ran the ball on them. and they showed that resilience and that other dimension of that offense that needed to be there. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Ravens anyway. Fuck them. So yeah, there's my picks: Ravens and Lions. And I'll pick the Ravens because my sister likes the Ravens. But yeah, I don't get these people that say I live in Maryland. I'm going to root for the Ravens. Whatever. You know, I live in Maryland too, but there's plenty of people around here I can't stand. I'm not going to root for any of them. All right, so we've been going for way too long. Scotty's trying to get laid. His wife is hollering at him over here in the chat. So,
no, mate, no, it's 20 past 11 at night, John. Do you know what I mean? Come on now.
All right, we're done. We're out of here. We'll see you later because Scotty needs to go to bed. Later.
I do.